Realizing the importance of both kinds of service, let no one despise one type of service over another. Let's find wherever we can best serve the Lord and do so properly, which leads to our next point. Both services demand the same goal: sacrifice and zeal. In the case of David and his men, 1. The men at the base weren't there because they were lazy or scared. 2. Though exhausted, they were just as motivated at those who went on. Their families had been kidnapped too. B. Someone had to stay with the baggage or the rest of the force might not have caught up with the enemy. C. Staying behind was a form of sacrifice when it was your family out there somewhere in the hands of the enemy. 3. With the same goal, sacrifice and zeal as those who pursued the enemy, they did their job of guarding the baggage. B. To fulfill our roles in the Lord's army, all need the same goal: sacrifice and zeal. 1. What is our goal? That in all things God may be glorified through Jesus Christ. 1 Peter 4:11. B. To glorify God, whether in our service or in our teaching. C. A goal like this can transform even secular or mundane service into a sacred and important one. 1. Providing babysitting services so the parents can be free to visit and teach others. 2. Working as a common laborer so as to be able to support preachers in a foreign country. 2. What kind of sacrifice? As good stewards of the manifold grace of God, 1 Peter 4:10. B. Each person has a gift, or more, an ability given to him by God's manifold grace. 1. As stewards, we will one day give an account, Matthew 25:14 through 30. 2. We may not have the same talent or number of talents, but we are expected to do the best with what we have. 3. We certainly shouldn't squander what has been given to us. C. While we may serve in different capacities, we should have the same sense of sacrifice. 1. Some believe preachers should be willing to sacrifice more than others. 2. Is such a view consistent with what we are learning here? Should the quartermasters back at the base be squandering what may have been given them to support the soldiers at the front? B. Should we not all have the same willingness to sacrifice if the need is there? C. If brethren at the base sacrifice as much as they expected those who are at the front, would there not be more good things being done? 3. What kind of zeal? As with the ability which God supplies, 1 Peter 4:11. B. Whatever our ability, whatever our service, God gives us the strength to do it. C. Shall we be slack with what God has given us? D. We should be zealous to utilize what we have in the manner worthy of God's gracious gift. It is not so much what service we render to God, but how we do it. And what sacrifice or zeal might be expected of one should be expected of all, for we seek the same goal. Finally, let's quickly note the point that both services receive the same reward. We saw where David made this law in Israel. 1. They shall share alike, 1 Samuel 30:24 through 25. 2. Whether they stayed by the supplies or served in the battle. B. The principle is repeated in the New Testament. 1. Jesus taught it in Matthew 10:41 through 42, illustrated with regards to deacons who are servants of the church, 1 Timothy 3:13. This should help us in our zeal and sacrifice. Conclusion: too often the Lord's battle is hindered by the lack of support. A. Some may be willing to go and teach. B. Others may not be willing to send and support. 2. Yet we have seen that both forms of service, A, are equally important, B, require the same goal, sacrifice, and zeal, C, receive the same reward. 3. Wherever we may serve in the Lord's army, whether at the front or at the base, let's do it as good stewards with great zeal. Speaking of the Lord's army, have you been enlisted by the Lord yet? 2 Timothy 2:34. Through the precious gospel of Christ, God is calling all who will come to him. 2 Timothy 2:14.